A very good evening and a warm welcome to Biz In Focus. I'm Zeenat Musafir. Joining us this evening is Dr. Chandrambu Denia, the founding Vice Chancellor of the Wavillas University and the former President of the National Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Doctor, and a warm welcome to the show.
Good evening, Zeenat.
Doctor, now the latest development in the global arena is the coronavirus. It is spread across more than 28 countries. How has the coronavirus negatively affected Sri Lanka, and of course, how will it affect the global economy?
So in world over, I think it's about 0.4% drop in the world economic activity, which is going to be more over the months to come in the future, and that will be felt here in Sri Lanka. But I must tell that this is an opportunity that we have in Sri Lanka, because there are certain things that have now become scarce in the world market, and there are things that we can also supply in the world market due to the drop in economic activity. It doesn't mean that the people who are consumers have withdrawn, but it is actually the supplies have withdrawn. The market has dropped because there's a drop in supplies, and some prices have increased and some commodities have become very scarce. So basically we have an opportunity actually in Sri Lanka. We must get into action very rapidly to capture some of those opportunities, particularly in the light of that, our exports have not picked up the way we have expected. In fact, our imports have gone up during December also. Now, I think what we have in our country is a huge trade gap, and we want to expand our exports. So now these are opportunities that we get in our country to try and explore avenues of exporting more in the places where the markets are becoming scarce with certain commodities and goods.
Talking about exports, Doctor, now Sri Lanka's export sector is mainly dependent on tea, apparel, and of course the whole economy is dependent on foreign remittances. How can Sri Lanka diversify its export portfolio? How can Sri Lanka export more products and of course bring more revenue to the country?
That is a real valuable question actually. How we can transform our economy from what we are now to a higher level of technology and value addition, because the world has developed with technology and value addition, which we have not understood. For example, in the agriculture sector, we are following the same traditional agricultural practices from the time that we practiced agriculture during the last 75 years or even more. Now, the transformation that I'm looking for in our country is a real technological transformation to add value to the agricultural commodities, which all the other countries have done, except in our country we are really lagging. For example, you mentioned tea. Now, for tea, we have suggested value addition. How to add value? It is not just making tea packets or making beautiful packages, but we really need to look at the markets, look at the customers' preferences, and then look at the bigger markets. The tea market is such a small market, it's maybe around about $50 billion in the world, but there are other markets like 500 billion markets are there, then 200 billion markets are there. Now these are markets where tea can enter, but not as a beverage, but it has to enter those markets in a different shape, in a different product. So for that product, we need to really do some research and then develop those products with certain brand identities in our country. Now, I can't see that happening in our country. So when you look at in our agriculture market, tea is one of the most promising products that we have. It's a commodity at this moment. I don't want it to be a commodity anymore. I want it to be a high value consumer item. How do you really do that? That's the secret behind success. Then of course rubber and coconut. Vast potentials if you introduce technology for rubber and also for coconuts. I can't go into the details of the technologies and where it should be introduced, but that is an essential thing that we have not done in our country. We are still looking, and we only try to change the crop when it is not becoming productive in our country. We complain about not having enough labor to do coconut plucking or rubber tapping, but technology is the answer. Now very soon tea will face the same thing. Already it is facing it. So technology is the answer. How do we use technology to get over these issues? And not only the crop side of it, but also after post-harvest, how do we add value to the product that we get? For example, latex, how do we make it high-value products? There should be a lot of research-based product development in our country. We don't have that. Coconut, same thing. Coconut, what a beautiful tree that is. Every inch of coconut tree is something that we really need and something that we can really transform into valuable products. But, though we have had research institutions, though we have had students studying in the universities, annually we produce about 700 students from the universities on agriculture. But where are these students? What are they doing after they pass out from the universities? Are they getting the opportunities to really practice what they have learned in the universities to add value to our products? I can't see that happening. So that is a great weakness in our society, because these are not directed, these are not planned, these are not organized, and there are no big goals that are given to these sectors to come up with solutions for value addition. I call it value addition. There is nothing else that I want to talk about. It's about value addition. And how do we really do value addition in all these agriculture products?
Talking about the agriculture sector, according to the National Statistics Department, Sri Lanka's economy generated 259,808 new jobs during 2016 and 2018. But during the same period, agriculture jobs have fallen by 127,000, approximately 127,000 jobs. Now, as you said, Doctor, where is the issue in terms of agriculture studies? Is it starting from universities, or what happens to these university students after they leave their university education?
Yes, Zeenat, actually now the numbers that you're talking about, the population fraction in agriculture, out of about 8.4 million working population, there are about 23% of the population is in agriculture. Unfortunately, the contribution from that 23% into the GDP is only around 7%, which is, I can't justify having so many people contributing such a small amount in the agriculture. As a result, those people are all very poor. You see, very low income. So the government has to run different subsidy schemes to support the agricultural community in our country. So no wonder that more people are leaving agriculture to come into other sectors. The fastest growing sector is the service sector. So you find more people moving into the service sector. And then the industry sector also need more people. But we can't find those people in Sri Lanka, and they go overseas to bring people to work in the industry. So actually, if agriculture sector is to transform into a high contributor to GDP, then we have to look at high value industries using agriculture, high value added products. So that's a strategy that we have to plan and implement in our country, and with a foresight of about 4 to 5 years initially, and then you must have real long term, because agriculture is partly and largely food. Food is a thing that will forever will go on in the world. So as the food sector keeps changing and asking for different tastes, because it's all about your eyes must get excited about the thing, and also your tongue must be asking for the quality and the taste. So we should be able to develop that kind of food from our agriculture, and we have plenty of resources in our country. We are not looking at it from that point. You see how we are only using every day the same old methods, and we keep on complaining that government is not doing enough. It's not the government that is not doing enough, it's our people not doing enough for themselves, you see. There's plenty of information in the market, in the world market, and today the digital knowledge, the internet is everywhere, plenty. And these young children who are getting out from school, universities, they know about this. Now no one is really illiterate on digital awareness. So they must really transform themselves to learn by looking at internet, and if they haven't learned it in the university, and get into action by themselves. And I think that enterprising, innovative, that taking initiatives, all must come. We keep talking about our ancestors, our history, and how good they were, and what kind of initiatives that we have done. All that must come alive now. That I can't see that life in our people. You look at the number of the Udghoshana that we had in our country during the last couple of weeks. Every week we have about 6-7 groups of people coming to the Golfes Green and asking for the government's intervention. I just can't understand any other country that will tolerate this kind of thing, and also not, people who would go and ask the government to give them everything. It's amazing that that how poor we are in our thinking, in our action. And I think this is all because, partly because how easy it is to make our people so gullible and drag them onto the streets, including the university students. You look at the university students. How many groups of university students ended up in Colombo during the last few weeks? And all that is because they get dragged from their main core business of learning in the university to come onto the streets. And they carry this aspiration. After they pass out, the government must give them a job. I wouldn't expect any university to produce any graduate who would go and ask for a job from the government. And they must learn how to create jobs, you see. And when the government is giving support, there are plenty of avenues of support. The ecosystem is not government creating a job and asking you to come and work in that job. That is a government job, right? But what I'm looking at is, how the ecosystem works. The ecosystem is funding, technical knowledge, and we have plenty of places where you can get technical knowledge. And things like that, you see. And then also we have export development boards, who are giving information on where the markets are, and they are ready to help you. We should really get that kind of initiative from within as young people to take a risk and then get into the water to swim. We want to all the time look at the water and say, it's too deep. There are, sharks in the water. And we can't get into water, I will get embrisa or something, that kind of thing. See, we can't go like that.
Do you think Sri Lanka can still be an agriculture-based economy?
It's no longer an agriculture-based economy. You can see that, it's only contributing about 7% to the GDP and only 23% of the people in the agriculture sector.
Is there any potential for Sri Lanka to become
an economy? The potential comes with value addition. Now, when you look at some countries in Europe, you see, they only have one season where they can do things outside. So what they did was they got into protected agriculture. And then, they transformed the economy to become a hugely, huge food suppliers to the world. How do they do that? That is because of the initiatives they are taking using the technological know-how. We haven't done any of that kind of thing. If the country wants to transform ourselves to become an agriculturally strong economy, then I would say we must think of doubling the GDP contribution from agriculture. And that can happen only with value addition. And how do you do that? If they ask me separately, I will give advice, as to how it can be done. But the point is, that goes for industries also.
Doctor, now talking about exports, once again diversifying our export portfolio, how far do you think free trade agreements, that is agreements with Sri Lanka and other foreign countries, have helped diversify or increase our exports? Do you think it has facilitated our export process?
Straightforward answer is no. You see, in 1998, I was also helping the government to formulate the free trade agreement from the chamber movement. And at that time, we had great expectations because this market was so big that we are going to get into a huge Indian market. It never happened. You see, it never happened. So all these positive lists, the negative list, and all that thing is nonsense. I think we have to look at and formulate trade agreements win-win for both sides, not on hypothetical wins, actual wins. I analyzed the trade statistics recently, and then I found that the two biggest countries that we import are China and India. I can't tell you immediately the ratio of the amount that we import and export, but I think it is roughly about 1 to about 10 with India, and with China it's about 1 to about 40 or 50. It will keep on getting worse for us. Now, I saw that, India, throws money at us, gives credit lines to us to buy from them. That means, we'll be importing more and more and more things from India for us, and we'll be depriving Sri Lankans who are enterprising Sri Lankans to really develop these products which are easy to develop in our country. And that is how we develop small and medium enterprises. Once the small and medium enterprises really have to compete with the imported products coming from India and China, there is no chance for these people. I can remember when I was a kid, we were looking at, made in England as the thing, right? Then at that time, China was not even heard of, but Japanese were thought of as, Japang Badu. You see, which means, poor quality and, only very cheap things like. But later, they transformed themselves into becoming the best quality products in the world and the best technological products in the world. And how did they do that? They copied the products that were produced in the Western world and started manufacturing them in their country with innovative value addition to their own. Look at the cars, look at the heavy equipment. That's all. Korea did the same thing. We have gone through this story over and over again in our country, but I have to still repeat this so that it becomes a reminder. Now, when Japan developed, China was not even heard of, right? And then when Chinese people came to help us, we 1976 we got this Bandaranaike Memorial International Conference Hall, and they maintained a good relationship with us, and over the years they never imposed their will on us or anything like that. They slowly caught our respect and attention. So even when the coronavirus came, we still love the music. We want to hold Bodhi Puja and think that get well soon, like that kind of attitude. We didn't have that kind of attitude towards any other country. That's because they have really developed their relationship very well. At the same time, they have got the best of attention from us, for example, to take a huge trade advantage in their One Belt One Road initiative. And also, what have we done to get a reciprocal relationship from China on trade? I'm sure we can negotiate that in a decent way to sell some of our things in China, right? That has not happened. So what I am saying is we really need to look at the value addition and then work on that hard. Yeah. And actually, one of the things that I must tell you, your question related to the education sector. Now, at the base of the country's economy, it's our learning growth perspective. Learning and growth is actually made up of these three essential things. Number one is our human capital. Human capital is about the most important core group of human capital is the learned, scientifically minded research people. And that group is very small in our country, right? We have a lot of people who are expecting jobs from the government and who are ready to do manual work. Just remember that with the fourth industrial revolution, the manual work will keep on disappearing. And in about 5 to 10 years' time, most of the jobs will be gone out of the window. So we must be ready for that. Unless we really start transforming our human capital with high knowledge, ready for high-tech work, we can't really develop our innovation, value addition and technology-based economy in our country. Second thing is about technology itself. What kind of technologies do we learn from overseas, borrow from overseas and develop locally, looking at their things? That is, of course, the entire organization culture should change, because we are full of corruption in our country. If we don't get rid of this corruption and nepotism, I think we are going to have serious consequences in time to come, much worse. So basically my expectation is putting the baseline right, and then we can talk about the rest, how we can develop, add value and deliver a great response to the country's economic demands.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That is Dr. Chandra Embuldeniya, the founding Vice Chancellor of the Wallace University and the former President of the National Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Doctor, once again for joining us this evening. And that's a wrap of Biz In Focus. Thank you for watching. Good night.